I guess that's an example of something that was recognized many years ago, but took a long time to get done. And that's why it's important for what we do, but also for what you do and other future generation of students do to help make this campus and this community more friendly and more sustainable, not just for cyclists, but also pedestrians and, frankly, just the entire equation of mobility. So, you know, part of sustainability is how do we get around and move around in looking towards the future. And in the past, it's been, you know, more lanes of traffic, more roads. The government is spending $1 billion now to put another lane on the 405 freeway, which if you've been on the 405 freeway, you know that's been going on. And just a fraction, a little over 10% of that $1 billion for one lane on the 405 freeway would allow us to implement all of the bicycle lanes that we've envisioned for the city of Los Angeles, 10% of that for one lane. So it's a question of priorities. It's a question of recognizing, as many cities throughout the world have recognized, is that you can't build your way out of the mobility issue just continuing on this current path of more and more lanes accommodating more and more cars, that we, like other major cities, need to really look at different examples. And I want to talk about a few of those. First of all, how many, Alexis asked a lot of good questions, but how many of you have a bicycle? Whether you use it or not, how many of you have a bicycle? Okay, that's a great number. So, how many of you heard about Ciclavia that happened on October 10th in LA? And of those of you who heard about it, how many of you actually participated in it? That was 7.5 miles of streets going from Boyle Heights to East Hollywood through downtown Los Angeles that were closed off for traffic for 5 hours. And estimates of 60,000 to 100,000, mostly cyclists, took advantage of that 5-hour opportunity to ride through that stretch of Los Angeles. It was really inspiring and amazing, and it really kind of shows that latent interest. And it wasn't just cyclists in spandex, it was families and little kids and walkers and roller skaters and lots of other things, but mostly it was cyclists. And I think that was a demonstration that there's a lot of need there, and you know it's going to be handled differently in different parts of the city. But I want to focus in on this part of the city. First of all, let me just briefly tell you that the city's Bicycle Advisory Committee was established by Mayor Bradley over 30 years ago, over 35 years ago, as a way to get input into the city departments and elected officials on bicycle matters. It's comprised of one appointee from each city council district, council member, and 4 from the mayor. So 19 members. It meets every other month. We're currently meeting in Hollywood, and if there are public meetings, you're certainly welcome to attend and provide input on that. I want you to know it exists because in case it comes up in conversation with other people, you should know, hey, there is this advisory committee to the city, in addition to the advocacy groups like the LA County Bicycle Coalition that are out there pushing for bicycle matters. Secondly, the universities are a major cycling opportunity, sometimes realized and sometimes not. A 2009 study for University of Southern California showed that there were from 10 to 15,000 cyclists who regularly cycle to USC. Now I realize that the geography is a little bit different in terms of where the housing is for a lot of the students for that campus, as opposed to this campus where there is more commuter. But even for this campus, I've been given a number of 4,000 cyclists associated with Cal State Northridge. And if we don't know that actual number, we need to get that number and get that potential. Um, uh, I want to talk a little bit, though, again about this campus and some of the neighboring streets. Reseda Boulevard is in the plan to be continuous all the way down from the north end up in Porter Ranch all the way down to below Ventura Boulevard. It already exists south of Vanowen. We're trying to close the gap south of Parthenia down to make that connection to Vanowen. There is a narrow section right at Chase, but hopefully within the next several months that can be installed. As part of that linkage is a narrow section around Sherman Way where there's sharrows that have been installed. Sharrows is a shared lane marking, and if you see this is the only set that's in the San Fernando Valley, but if you see a little chevron with a bicycle symbol, that's indication to motorists and cyclists that share that lane, and that's in lieu of there not being adequate width without doing something like removing parking to continue that bicycle lane. So I do hope when you're cycling that you'll use facilities such as that. Just recently there was bicycle lanes, it was mentioned earlier, put onto Wilbur Avenue between Nordhoff and Chatsworth Street. This was as actually part of a road diet that was actually begun a year ago when the city's Department of Transportation proposed taking out the 2 pedestrian crossings at Prairie and Superior that serve the 2 elementary schools, Callahan and Topeka Drive, and the neighborhood's really upset, and they got over 600 signatures to tell DOT they didn't want the crosswalks removed because lots of issues, safety of the kids going to schools, cars using Wilbur as a bypass street and traveling at high rates of speed. I've been told 60 miles an hour, even though the speed limit's 40. They saved the crosswalks from being removed, and then several months ago, the street was being resurfaced, and markings showed up that showed that it was going to be reduced from 2 lanes each direction to having from a total of 4 lanes, 2 lanes each direction, to 1 lane each direction with a middle turning lane, which is for safety, so you can make a left turn without being rear-ended, and adding bicycle lanes and retaining the parking. And as was mentioned earlier, this has become a controversial issue because some of the people who don't live in the neighborhood there have been used to using Wilbur as a high-speed little bypass to get around, to get where they want to go. And so one of the criticisms that's been mentioned by the elected council member, who was mentioned earlier also, was that no cyclists are using Wilbur. But in reality, many of us do use Wilbur, and I would ask you, if you're out going from here to there, whatever, try to use Wilbur. It's a great street, especially if you think Reseda has too many cars on it. Even though they're not going as fast as Wilbur used to go, Wilbur is a good alternative. But I think it makes the case that it's always important to have community outreach, not just for the people who live in the area, but also for the organizations that serve the area, including the Neighborhood Council and also the city's Bicycle Advisory Committee. We are supposed to get that information, and we didn't. One other local issue was Zelza Avenue to the east of campus. A couple years ago, there was a proposal that actually went into effect to increase the speed limits. And I won't go into all the details, but basically the way the state law is that if the police department wants to enforce using radar, they have to set the speed limit within the 85th percentile of the speed of the traffic that's using it. What that means is, under state law, is that speeders set the speed limits. And this was a difficult lesson to learn for the folks who are involved with the high school, Granada Hills Charter High, some of the religious institutions, and the neighborhood along Zelza, that they had no control over how fast the speed limit would be on that street, especially given there have been CSUN students that have been injured. There have been other people who have been killed. Pedestrians have been killed on that street. So that's another issue that we're need to be concerned with in terms of cyclist impacts. Am I out of time? Yeah. Okay, okay. So I would just re-emphasize that your involvement, both here on campus as well as surrounding the campus, that you're not on your own. There are organizations you can work with on campus, and if they're not doing enough, speak up, stand up, and get them to do more. But also insist that more be done around the campus so that it will make it easier to use bicycles as an alternative form of transportation to get to campus, because it's not just what is on campus, but you have to have the links there. And I'll just conclude by saying and you're going to be hearing either next or the second person next about the city's bicycle plan. You know, right now, there's really not much being provided, in my opinion, for part of the backbone to serve the Cal State Northridge campus. We already have Reseda Boulevard. We have Plummer Street existing to the east, but that's not designated as backbone. Lindley is being proposed as a neighborhood-friendly street, but if you've been on south of the campus, but if you've been on Lindley, you'll know that there's 2 lanes and there's not much room for a car and a cycle, so you really have to take the lane. So I think we need to do more work, in my opinion, to advocate for making the streets around Cal State Northridge better and safer, and make more connectivities with what we already have. So I'll conclude there. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm here to talk about electric bikes, and basically the response I always get when I say I produce or I sell electric bikes is, you guys are lazy. Basically, on the contrary, it's a regular bicycle with an electric motor, and that's the thing that's helped us if we want to go to a certain area fast, if we want to go a few miles or 10 miles, that's where the electric bike comes in. And I ride my electric bike to work for several reasons. One is for my health. I need the exercise. The second one is I love bicycling. I love to be connected with the community. And the third one is I don't produce any, carbon emission. Okay, let me show you the my commute to work. It's like 18 and a half miles from Rancho Santa Margarita to Dana Point. So it only takes me like an hour and 9 minutes to get there. So I'm basically have the speed is around 17 or 16 miles per hour. So I'm really hauling, going to my workplace. And on this electric bike, you still need to pedal. We're not using just the electric motor. I am pedaling, doing the motion, and while I'm pedaling, there's a sensor that kicks in, and the motor helps me out. So my bicycle is like 90 to 20 miles per hour, so it's pretty fast. Okay, it's fun, it's easy, and environmentally friendly. Of course, benefits of cycling. Of course, regular bikes, same way. You don't need parking fees, no emission, it's fast, you can exercise, it's quiet, no traffic jams. You can go through the side of the street or different routes. More benefits on the electric bikes. Travel faster, shorter commute time compared with regular bicycles. You can carry heavy stuff. You can have panniers. You can have grocery bags and no problem